Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to another episode of the Batcave, a series of fast-paced 30-minute political shows aimed at opening the eyes of America to what is currently taking place in our country. I'm your host, Batmobile, and our guest today is a brave American patriot, a U.S. Army officer who fought for his core principles when he questioned the validity of Barack Obama's presidency by refusing his orders to deploy until the president's real long-form U.S. birth certificate was produced, and whose actions got him tried, court-martialed, and sentenced to prison for 6 months. Lieutenant Colonel Dr. Terry Lakin. Welcome to the show, Dr. Lakin. It's an honor to meet you, sir.
Oh, thank you for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
Great. Now, Dr. Lakin, can you tell us, sir, a little about your background so our listeners have an idea as to who Dr. Terry Lakin really is?
I think I'm just a simple, normal person. I was raised kind of in a midtown or mid-sized town in Colorado, and a small school, and I was at the same school from kindergarten through 12th grade, and had wonderful friends in that small school, and a very supportive community and a very supportive family life. All through my upbringing.
Right.
I went to a small college in Colorado, and found a longing for medicine there. And so after my undergraduate, I went to osteopathic medical school in Kansas City, and became a physician. I got a commission in with the scholarship program through the Army, and they helped me out through school, and I was really enjoying a career in the military as a family practice physician, and then I got a second residency program completed in occupational medicine, so I'm dual boarded.
Right.
But I was enjoying serving my country to the utmost of my ability.
How long have you served in the military, sir?
I was in my 17th year, and I had just been selected for promotion to full bird colonel, which would have taken place a few months ago had I still been in the Army.
And at what point in your military service did you decide to question this president's eligibility, and why did you do so?
It was occurring during the primary election process. I had a bigger interest over the last several years in politics, and just wanted to be informed. And the information that I was getting and researching, led me to have some questions about, one candidate in particular, and it just so happened that candidate got elected, and I think that there were some valid questions that were never addressed or looked at properly, and
right.
And I proceeded to try and investigate those or ask for answers through my chain of command about those.
Well, when you came out and questioning the birth certificate, I mean, they started labeling you in the media as a birther, which is the same thing that they've called all the millions of other Americans who have the same questions about the validity of the president's birth certificate. What were your feelings about that when they started calling you a birther?
Name calling doesn't mean much to me, but, it seems like the Democrats most of the Democrats were the original birthers. They certainly questioned John McCain, and even after he presented a birth certificate and went through a validation process, I believe, there was still prominent Democrats or other people that were saying that it was not going to stand, that if he got elected, they would be tying him up in court about it.
That's right. I remember that. All right, let's talk about...
I'm not the original birther, and calling people a birther still doesn't look at solving the issue.
Well, exactly.
Those are the people that,
And as we know, usually what they do is they spin. They realize that they're the ones that have to defend themselves, so they say, well, let's start calling names, and maybe it'll just take away from, where the focus needs to be. All right, so let's talk about your trial. What exactly were you charged with? And during your trial, did your defense ever request for the court to produce the actual long-form birth certificate of Barack Obama?
Well, probably have to back up to the original, shortly after my charges, I knew that I would be undergoing a process kind of like a grand jury. It's called an Article 32 hearing. And it's at this Article 32 hearing where that stood my only chance to subpoena or deposition people to get some evidence out. And, that was a process that I was really looking forward to, or that was the small but, chance that we could actually get some information during that Article 32. But the investigating officer for the Article 32 essentially declined everything that my defense counsel had requested, and after that took place, there was no chance that I had in any kind of court-martial proceedings.
Did they give any explanation why they wouldn't allow you to bring your evidence in?
Oh, certainly it's all written with using precedent cases and stating that it had nothing to do with the charges that were filed against me, that I had valid orders from a colonel to report down to Fort Campbell, and I did not do those orders. But for a year and a half prior to that, I had been trying to go to congressional members and go through my chain of command using what process I knew and begging them to, look into this. And, I wanted to remain anonymous, but I thought that there was a valid question. And the replies that I got to those articles, it's called an Article 138, that I asked a question of my commanders, and the replies that I got from that and the replies that I got from my congressional members left me with little faith in our leadership, and my options after trying to do that didn't seem any better than a court-martial.
Amazing. This kind of justice should not be expected in a free country. It really shouldn't. All right, so you were sentenced to 6 months at the U.S. Penitentiary in Fort Leavenworth. Can you tell us a little about your experience while you were in prison there?
Well, certainly you go in there and you're made to be not even a name, really. You're just a member. You're treated like a person that has no rights. And the guards are about the same. The guards are there to make sure that you stay in line, and there's cameras and speakers all around, and nobody wants to say anything that could be held against them at any time. But
so what were you doing while you were in prison? How did you spend your days?
Well, it was a good. I was happy to learn that they no longer have the chain gangs and making big rocks into little rocks, but that's kind of what I was expecting. But I went there. It was a brand new facility. It was medium security for most of the facility, and we were assigned duties. Some people worked in textiles, making or repairing some Army equipment, and other people had maintenance duties inside and outside. And I was kind of a lucky one. I guess I was assigned to the library to file books and do office work along with a handful of other guys. And then after about a month, the chaplain picked me out to be part of his crew on the chaplain's detail. So there was 4 of us working for the chaplain, getting ready for services on Sunday and cleaning the church and maintaining the Christian library that they had.
Very good, yes. Now, were the other prisoners that you served with, were they aware of the crime that you were accused of, and how did they feel about your actions?
It took several months, but I think, after the first month or two, pretty much the prison rumor network, had distributed why I was there. There was some new inmates that came in, and as soon as they could, come over to me, they'd come over and shake my hand and say, "Thank you for what you're doing." But,
excellent.
There was a couple guys that were had history with Special Forces and made a beeline toward me and shook my hand and said, we in the Special Forces we think there's a problem, but we just can't say anything.
Right. Now, while you were in prison, you studied our nation's founding documents, so maybe you can answer this question for us. Aside from whether Barack Obama's birth certificate is valid or not, it is a fact that his Kenyan-born father was of British citizenship at the time the president was born. In order to run for president, doesn't our Constitution require that both parents be U.S. citizens at the time the candidate was born? I ask this not only to question the validity of Barack Obama's presidency, but also for us to understand the law for future reference, since, for example, Florida Senator Marco Rubio's father was not a naturalized U.S. citizen at the time that the senator was born. And I know many people feel that he would make a very good president, but would he be valid?
In my opinion, I think that there's a good question there. And, I think that there needs to be, Congress or the Supreme Court needs to reach down and answer that question. I think that the question that we currently have, it needs, proper data. And without the proper data that's forensically evaluated and proven to be true, then no one can even begin to answer that question. But I think there are some valid concerns about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Dr. Lakin, I know that until you're formally discharged from the military, you can't directly discuss matters concerning the president's eligibility. But I want to point out that a couple of weeks before you were released from prison, the White House released a certificate of live birth that many experts have said since that is likely a fraud. And there were obviously many flaws in the document, ranging from the inconsistencies in the registration number to the signature of the local registrar being a certain UKL, which is an apparent play on the word ukulele. Now, I personally look at that as the administration having a little fun at the expense of the American people, but it should also be seen as a slap in the face to you, Dr. Lakin. It's just my opinion, but to me it simply shows the lack of decency and class by the people currently running our government. But once again, that's just my opinion.
Oh, I mean, my opinion is that there should be, some validation. I mean, you can't just release a document and nobody tries to validate it. There's several other means of validating that document that evidently no one is interested in doing.
Well, see, I've never understood that. I mean, why is it that when did this law all of a sudden appear, or lack of law, where people can just become president? They'll say they assume that he's president, and then he'll if they bring out a birth certificate and it turns out that there's a question about it, nobody it's like, that's it. You have to accept it because that's what we showed. It's not right. This should go into the courts immediately, and the court should say yes or no, and it's answered. I don't understand it.
I do think that Supreme Court and or Congress really has an issue that they need to address, and why they don't, I don't know.
I really think that there's some people are pulling some strings in our government that we're not aware of, and unfortunately we're going to have to clean that up if we're to take back our country. Anyway, can you tell us, sir, exactly what have you lost due to your court-martial as far as your career is concerned, and how much was your retirement pension worth? I ask this because I want the people out there who are listening to this show to understand exactly what you sacrifice in the name of seeking the truth for your country on behalf of the American people.
Well, I believe I'm always trying to be a positive person, and so what I didn't lose is I haven't lost my dignity, and
Excellent.
as far as monetary wise, I did lose a career that I was, had been selected for promotion to full bird colonel in the Army, and I probably would have stayed in well past 20 years. My pension would have been worth, over the next 40 or 50 years, probably over $2 million.
Wow.
And, it's been a struggle to get back to civilian employment, so that's been, it's taken several months, but I believe I'm a good family practice physician, and I enjoy doing that, and I've been gainfully employed recently to do that. Excellent.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what have you been doing career-wise since you got out?
Well, it's just taken a while to, get into civilian side medicine. Getting credentials and licenses and things like that transferred to different hospitals has taken a long time. But I was offered a job about a month ago and took it, and I enjoy it. It's a great opportunity, and I hope to hope to do a good service for these guys, and I think I am. So.
Excellent. Now, most of the people that you've met since you got out, have they shown their support for your actions?
The ones that know about it, certainly, but there is a lot that don't know about it. I'm always hopeful, and I don't discuss this at work or anywhere else, but I was pleasantly surprised that some coworkers last week were talking on their break about politics and that there was a problem with our government right now, not only spending, but they had a high concern about the possible infiltration of Muslim system that just is not compatible with our Constitution and with our country.
That is very troubling for this nation, Dr. Lakin. It's something we should be concerned about because the media is trying to make it look like there's only a few radicals, and anybody who's done their research knows that the Islamic Sharia law people, that they represent the majority of the Muslim world, and that's what they're trying to bring into our culture. So that is something very, very serious that we need to take care of.
I think people need to look at that and look at what's happening in Europe and look at what's happening to some of our cities in the U.S.
Absolutely, they are taking over. Now, recently, recently others in our military have come forward to also question the validity of the birth certificate through similar actions such as yours, Dr. Lakin. Now, I understand that Maricopa County Sheriff Joe Arpaio from Arizona and several other sheriffs are leading a charge to investigate the fraudulent document in court. How does it feel knowing that your efforts are finally beginning to snowball on the side of the American people?
Well, I just think that there's a truthful answer out there, and I do hope that Sheriff Joe has a way of doing that. And I think part of his comments that I read or heard, he stated that it may take up to 5 years. Well,
wow.
That's kind of discouraging, but the truth will come out, and I hope that some other people or the people that are responsible for actually finding the truth will speed it up.
Well, I'm hoping that the truth will come out too, but I'm hoping we don't have to wait 5 years. It's kind of scary sometimes when you think about it, and you kind of question, are we actually going to make it to see free and fair elections without a crisis taking place in November 2012?
I personally, I share some of those concerns of yours, personally. So.
Yeah, we have to keep on our toes and just make sure that we get there in one piece, because when you look around, when I look around, I see, it's obvious that the person at the top is not working for the American people. He's basically trying to divide us and conquer. He's got an ulterior motive, an agenda that we're not aware of, and it's pretty scary, And when I think that people such as yourself who are taking orders from this president, and they're in harm's way by a president who, in my opinion, is not an American citizen, was not born here, and is obviously, from all his actions, working against us. Frankly, that's pretty frightening, sir.
Well, I can't really agree or disagree with you on that, but I just have to go back and say that there's a legitimate issue that somebody needs to answer, and I think the people that detract and say that there isn't an issue aren't being honest. And,
right.
The other people need to say, sort it out and say, it shouldn't be some lieutenant colonel, it shouldn't be some staff sergeant, it needs to be, either Congress or the Supreme Court, and they need to reach down and take this difficult issue and solve it.
Well, it's pretty scary, and also when I think of what's holding a lot of the people, in the military, from more people from coming out, it has a lot to do with the pensions and the money that obviously people, they don't want to speak out against the government because they're afraid of losing their pension, and they probably figure that if they stay quiet, don't say anything, they'll have their money. But what I want these people to understand is, if our country should fall into the hands of communists, our money's not going to be worth anything. So if somebody's got a $2 million pension that they're holding out for, and they say, well, if I don't say anything, I'll get it, that money's not going to be worth anything. So there comes a point where you have to say, money no longer matters. It's doing what's right in the name of the United States of America, what people should be trying to do. to try to save our nation before we fall. Because once we fall, we're not getting back up.
Now, personally, my decision process had the faith in Christianity involved in it, and the worrying about my family's future and our country's future, and my beholding to the money or the finances of it took a backseat to that.
Well, you did the right. You definitely did the right thing, sir, because people need to be made aware that what's taking place in America right now is not normal. This is not. We've never gone through a period of time in our country with what's happening right now. We're on the verge of something very serious if we don't stop it before it takes place. Now, Dr. Lakin, is there a book that's in the works about your story, and can you tell us a little about it and when it'll be available?
Yeah, the book has been very fun to work on, and there's a section of me telling my story, but I'm really excited about the essays that we have in the back. There's been approximately 20 people that have contributed to some work in the back on essays about the Constitution, about citizenship, and about several other problems in our country, and I really enjoy reading those. I'm looking forward to that. But the book is in its first draft and just kind of being delayed a little bit. I think it may be, publishable in probably another month.
Oh, that's excellent. Yeah, great. Now, I'm very curious about this. Do you have any plans for a future in politics?
I don't right now, but I want to take care of my family, and I want to continue to grow as a Christian and my faith in the Lord. And after that, I don't know. If it's in my cards, I guess I'll deal with it when it happens. But,
I definitely think that you should consider it, sir, because when you consider what you've gone through, you're opening the eyes to the American people, and you're a pioneer. I know there are others out there that are starting to wake up and do the same thing. But what you did, you're a pioneer. There's always one person that has to open that door. That's what you did. What you did was very courageous. So I really look forward to you having a future in politics. I think you'd have a lot of support.
Well, I appreciate that. There's a lot of people that are a lot smarter than me, legally wise and historical wise. I enjoy being a physician, and that's my calling right now. But we need to have people held accountable for what they're doing in our government.
Oh, I fully agree. I think that that's what we need right now. We need people like yourself. That's why I'm saying politics would be great. We need people like yourself who know what's taking place and says, we're going to put a stop to this. We're going to do things the right way, because for a long time this country has been straying too far to the left, and it's beyond the tipping point right now. So I think we need people like you who actually understand and has been there to say, we have to stop this, or else we know what's going to happen.
Or you, Batmobile. I mean, I'll support you if you if you want to get into politics. I mean,
well, thank you, sir, but no, I'm not qualified. I'm just, I'm just the average person, and I'm here to make sure that people like you have your story held. See, this is my problem with what's taking place in America today is the media. The media, they're just 100% liars. I know people say Fox News. Well, Fox News also pulled a bait and switch on the American people. They actually said, we're going to get conservatives, people will listen to us, and little by little we'll start moving them to the left. And now you look at them and you say, well, are they the same Fox News as was around 2 years ago? We don't have representation today. It's either the extreme left or a rhino center left, which is basically what Fox News is. So that shows like this and other shows, we're here to tell the truth. We're here to expose the truth that the media, the regular media, the lamestream media, they don't have the guts to expose. They have an ulterior motive, and that's what my job is here, to try to bring out people like you to say, look, here's a story. Here's a man who gave it all up. Wake up, America! This is happening right before your eyes. We never hear about your story in the lamestream media. Why? That's what I want to know. Why?
It's a good question. They just want to avoid the issue.
Absolutely. Well, not only that, but then you always hear about their strings are being pulled. We know that, and They always have, people say, well, how come you can say all these things on these shows on the internet? Well, I don't have a sponsor. You look at somebody, even Glenn Beck or Rush Limbaugh, they're great shows. I love them. I love what they have to say, but they have to answer to a sponsor. And when you don't have to answer to a sponsor, you can tell the truth. Tell the truth, and, you don't have any strings that are being pulled. You could just be yourself. And that's what we do. That's what we're trying to bring all these kinds of truths to the public. Well, I'd like to remind our listeners that contributions for the Dr. Lakin's legal defense can be made at the Terry Lakin Action Fund site, which is located at www.terrylakinactionfund.com. That's www.terrylakinactionfund.com, all one word. Well, Dr. Lakin, we're going to leave it there as we're running out of time. But I'd like to thank you for coming on the show and sharing with us a little about your life and your struggles to bring the truth about the man in the White House to the American people. Don't you ever believe for 1 second that your brave actions have gone unnoticed by decent Americans. We're very appreciative of your efforts, as it shows you as being an honorable man of integrity and honesty. I'm proud to call you an American hero, sir. Thank you for your services to our country and for having done what's right to protect us from enemies foreign and domestic, as you were sworn to do.
Well, thank you so much for having me on the show, and thank you for all the other guests that you've had on previous to me.
Well, thank you, sir. It's been an honor. We've been talking with Army Lieutenant Colonel Dr. Terry Lakin, a true patriotic American hero, who risked his military career with his pension and his reputation, all on behalf of warning the American people to the truth about the man in the Oval Office, a truth that we the people may never get an official answer to, but in our hearts, we know. Thomas Jefferson once said, "Question with boldness even the existence of a God, because if there be one, he must more approve of the homage of reason than that of blindfolded fear." That'll do it for today's show. Until next time, this is Batmobile, thanking you for joining us in the Batcave. Thank you, and God bless.